In this lesson, we'll review how to write an introduction for your informative essay. First, let's talk about why we need an introduction. Can't we just jump right in and start telling our reader the information? Well, we could, but then the reader's not prepared to hear it. The introduction needs to introduce our topic, and it needs to give our reader a reason to read. It needs to create interest. Sometimes there's background information that our reader needs in order to understand the information we're about to give them. And finally, our introduction should identify the main idea of our paper and preview the rest of the essay. There are 3 parts to an essay introduction: a hook, a connecting sentence or sentences, and a thesis statement. You should remember hearing about these parts last year, but this lesson is going to review each of them in more detail. First, let's take the thesis. Yes, it comes at the end of the introduction, but it is quite possibly the most important sentence of your entire paper, so we're going to talk about writing it first. The thesis serves as the topic sentence for the entire essay. It's sometimes called a controlling sentence for that very reason. It controls where the paper is going. The thesis of an informational essay provides the essay's main idea. Remember, just as we've been working on when we read, we've been working on identifying the main idea. The main idea is the topic of the paper plus what the author will say about the topic. So in the case of this assignment, it is the topic that you are writing about plus what are you going to tell us about that topic. In informational writing, the thesis should not state an opinion. We save that for persuasive essays, which we'll be working on later in the year. So let's check out a couple. Are these good thesis statements? How about this one? The struggles America faced early on make its history interesting. What do you think? Good thesis sentence or not? I would suggest no. This is not a good thesis sentence because it states the author's opinion. How about this one? The United States of America faced many problems as it was forming. Good thesis sentence? What do you think? Yes, this one would work. It clearly states our topic, the United States of America, and specifically the formation of the United States of America, and it clearly states what we're about to tell the reader about it, that there were many problems that were faced. This is not an opinion. It is true, and the information you would provide could support that. All right, well now we've got a thesis sentence. You know what it is you're trying to communicate. But you can't just start out with that thesis sentence, not if you expect your reader to actually care. Instead, you need to start with a hook. The hook is the first sentence of the introduction, and it's meant to capture the reader's attention. It should appeal to the reader's emotions or physical senses. There are a lot of possibilities for a hook. You could give a startling fact. You could provide a direct quote, something somebody famous or not so famous has said. You could start with an anecdote, a brief story that illustrates a point. You could open with dialogue, even though we're not writing a narrative. It has a place. You could start with a riddle, something to get your reader thinking, or even a snapshot, which we also talked about during our narrative story writing unit. A vivid picture created with words. Some hooks to avoid are a question to your reader, a definition right out of the dictionary, or a cliche, a commonly heard expression. These are not horrible ways to start out an essay. They're not the worst hooks. They're better than having no hook. But all 3 of these are very basic hooks, and we should be moving our writing into a more mature phase. Lastly, I'm going to talk about the middle part of your introduction. You've got a hook that gets your reader's interest. You've got a thesis sentence that states the main idea. Typically, you need a connecting sentence or two, or maybe even three, in between those two parts. It links the hook to the thesis in a way that creates flow in your writing. Commonly, the connecting sentence or sentences include transition words or phrases, such as however, or in addition to, or something along those lines. Now let's look at an example. According to recent statistics, there are more than 12 million skateboarders worldwide. However, skateboarding hasn't always been so popular. It wasn't until 1975, at the Ocean Festival in California, when a group of skaters known as the Zephyr Team rode their boards like no one had in the public eye, low and smooth, that skateboarding was changed from being the hobby of a few to a serious, exciting sport. Today, skateboarding remains wildly popular for a number of reasons. This essay could go on to continue with body paragraphs that give the reasons why skateboarding is wildly popular. But if we look back, we can see that all the components of an effective introduction are here. It opens by getting the reader's interest with a statistic, then has a transition word and a connecting sentence. It continues with some more connecting, which tells an anecdote. So it's a little bit of a hybrid of the various hooks we talked about. And it ends with a thesis statement that gives the topic, skateboarding, what the author is going to say about the topic, why it remains wildly popular. This is an effective, informative essay introduction. So now it's your turn. You need to write an introduction for your informative essay about the history of America. Remember to include a hook, a connecting sentence or sentences, and a thesis statement. And, as your workflow tells you, make sure you show your thesis statement to Mrs. Grant once it exists. As we did in this lesson, you might actually start by writing your thesis sentence before you go back to work on your hook and connecting sentences. But that's up to you.